quite a lot of you won't know me because I basically almost never turn up to church because I'm mostly housebound by chronic illness. Incidentally, if you would like to meet me, I'd be very keen to meet you, and you can talk to Martin after the service to see how that's been made possible. As I said, I don't come to church very often because I'm chronically ill. This coming Thursday will mark 7 years since when I was at university one day and I just didn't feel like I could stand up properly, and I went home and I've never been back since. I was later diagnosed with an illness called chronic fatigue syndrome, which isn't exactly what it sounds like. It does mean that I am very fatigued. I'm bedbound for about 3 hours every day about 3 times a day for about an hour, and otherwise I'm flat on my back in bed. It also means I have something called orthostatic intolerance, which means that basically my body can't cope with being vertical for very long. If I stay sitting up or standing up for too long, I become very faint, and if I left it too long, I literally would faint. I have quite poor concentration, which is why I'm speaking for notes today, quite poor short-term memory. I also have a lot of nausea, a lot of pain. I'm relatively weak. I can lift quite heavy things, but I have very poor stamina, so I could lift a heavy thing just once. But for eating, for example, I have to use very light cutlery because I can't repeatedly lift a normal weight fork with food in it to the amount of time it would take to eat a meal, for example. And I'm also very sensitive to noise, to light, to stress, that sort of thing, so I spend a lot of time in a very quiet room, keeping things plain and simple. That's just to give you some background as to what my situation is, so that the piece that makes sense. So, as I said earlier, today, or this coming Thursday, marks 7 years since I first became ill. And so, although it's not a happy anniversary, on this anniversary, I really want to honour God for what He has done for me over these last 7 years. Firstly, I want to honour God because He has enabled me to accept my illness and the situation I live with. The illness I have is a little bit treatable in that you can treat the symptoms, but it's not curable. And I've become aware over the time that I've been sick that many people with this illness spend a lot of time fighting it, trying to find some kind of solution, trying to act like they don't have it and making themselves very ill by pushing themselves beyond their limits, that kind of thing. And I just don't do that. And nor do I kind of wallow in it and feel like I'm in a terrible situation. It's just life. And I want to honour God for enabling me to have that attitude. And I think a lot of that comes from the gospel story that I live with. I know that in the beginning God made the world and He made it good. God made the world and He made it good. He made it without sickness, without evil, without anything in it. But, as we all know, that was corrupted, that sin entered the world, and that doesn't just mean people doing bad things, it also means that God's good world was messed up. And so things like illness come into the world. And so I can feel angry that I'm sick. I can feel that this is not the way God wanted it to be. I don't have to pretend that my situation is fine and dandy. But also, God was so concerned about what had happened to His world and to His people that He sent Jesus. And Jesus came to make the world new. And part of that being new is that Jesus walks with me in my situation. I have His support, His company. I'm often alone, but I have Jesus with me. And Jesus understands when I'm too tired, my concentration's too bad that I can't talk. Jesus understands and Jesus knows. But also, Jesus promises that one day things are going to be made perfect. One day there will not be sickness in the world anymore. And so I have that hope, which isn't just kind of an airy-fairy one, that one day this won't be the way things are. And so in the light of that situation, knowing this is wrong, knowing that Jesus walks with me and knowing that it's not forever, I can accept my illness. I want to honour God for giving me that assurance. I also want to honour God on this anniversary for the way in which He provides for me. The first and most important way that I want to thank Him for is for His provision of Martin. Martin asked me to marry him just after I first started getting sick. And at the time when he asked me to marry him, I was very frightened, very confused. Every few days I would suddenly realise, oh my goodness, it's harder to roll over than it used to be. Oh my goodness, I can't hold my glass to drink anymore. And I was very frightened. I didn't know if I was on a downhill slope that was going to end with dying, and no one knew what was going on. I was having a fit state to answer what I was going to do with the rest of my life, whether I was going to live with Martin or not. But God in His graciousness, fully a year earlier, had told me that He wanted me to marry Martin, which was odd. At that time, Martin and I were living in different countries, we weren't going out, we did know each other, but we weren't particularly close friends, and I didn't really know what to make of this. But it was God being gracious. He knew what the future was going to hold, and so when Martin asked me, I just said yes, because I'd already made that decision years ago, a year ago. And He has been the most wonderful provision from God to me. I also want to thank God for the way He's provided this house which I'm in. We live in a place that is just perfect for us. Easy for me to get around. Lots of birds in the garden. Excellent neighbours. I also want to thank God for this church that He's provided. Even though I more or less never come, I feel very much part of this community, and I want to thank God for providing it for me. As well as that acceptance and that provision, I also want to thank God and honour God for the way in which He has enabled me to look outwards. Many people whose lives are so restricted find it very hard to look beyond themselves, and I want to give thanks to God for enabling me to do so. I spend many hours every day listening to the BBC World Service radio, and for those of you who aren't familiar with BBC World Service, it has all kinds of news, current affairs, documentaries from all around the world, including the bits of the world we don't think about very much, from Africa, from Asia, from South America. And I have become very aware, as I've listened to those stories, that if I lived in many parts of the world, I wouldn't be sitting here before you on my 7-year anniversary, because I would be dead. Years earlier, I would be dead, because in many parts of the world there's barely enough resources to go around, and people have to work very, very, very hard to get their daily bread, and there just aren't enough resources to go around to support a non-productive adult. And that awareness that God has given me through those radio programs has really inspired me to seek justice in the world. It is not right that what is an inconvenience in New Zealand that restricts my life is a death sentence in the Congo. God has also made me look outwards with respect to this house in which I live, not only to see this as God's good provision for me, but to also see it as something to be shared. And so we strive to open our house as much as we're able to within the restrictions that I have. He's also encouraged me to look outwards to other people with chronic fatigue, and I seek to write something for the National Support magazine every quarter to either share something that I've learned that I think that other people might find useful, but also to encourage other people that there are other ways of seeing their illness, and that a good life within the situation is quite possible. In conclusion, I want to say that my life is often very hard, and I do cry often and get very down about living with so many restrictions. However, I also have a very good life, and I want to give thanks to God today, on this anniversary day, for the good life that He has made possible, and for the many people that He has given me who support me in that.